Today we talk about the fall of Ubisoft.
Yeah.
Look, I don't like to hold my tongue. I like to speak my mind. And from my perspective, when I see a company that has failed to deliver quality to their customers, that have completely ignored any criticism, whether that's from the industry itself, from critics, or their fans, they get what they deserve. And in the case of Ubisoft, this is a victory for consumers. This is exactly what we want to see. Because if you're not working for us,
you're working against us.
And that's what they've been doing for years.
That's what people have been saying, bro.
When you're a company that's as recognized as Ubisoft, one of the most recognizable names in all of gaming, they're a cornerstone of AAA. You're going to have some ups and downs, but over the last few years, they've had a lot of downs. They've been digging a grave that I don't think that they can escape.
Okay.
Lack in quality, repetitive games.
That's what I'm saying. Like, there's people like, you know, NBA, well, 2K, NHL, NFL. It comes out every year, right? Call of Duty, it comes out yearly, and we understand that. The product is just repetitive enough for us to play it. And you have people that enjoy the franchise for what it is, right? But with Ubisoft, they're coming out with these Assassin's Creed games, and if they were coming out every year, or their games or whatever they were doing is coming out every year, so I'm pretty sure they've come out with a bunch of games in the last few years, and none of them have hit. If you're coming out with a bunch of games, they better be good or at least playable. And a lot of these Assassin's Creed games, people, I think, what, Origins or was it Valhalla? People were like, okay, this actually isn't bad. But their games just aren't innovative. They're not that great. And if it's an indie studio, it's different, but you have a AAA studio with, you know, decent resources and has a track record of decent games that it just isn't coming out with a good game. So
lack in player interest, controversy. Now their own investors are calling for their leadership to be ousted and for the company to be sold. How do you get yourself to that point? That's what I want to answer today.
Okay.
There's a lot of other companies that are traveling this road to ruin, and I want this to be a lesson to all. So let's talk about the rise and fall of Ubisoft.
Yes, sir.
As of recording this video, Ubisoft stock just hit a low that they haven't seen in over a decade. Their stock prices fell almost 84% over the past few years, and with recent releases...
Ubisoft stock price. Okay, I'm probably not able to see it or something, because that's definitely not right. Oh, that's euros. How do I change it from euros? Canadian, CAD. Okay, I just don't know how to change it. It has to be lower now.
Is like Skull and Bones, Assassin's Creed Mirage, X Defiant, Prince of Persia: The Lost Crown, Star Wars Outlaws.
Oh my, Prince of Persia, bro. I played that game on the Wii. It was so good, man. One of the first ones. It was so good.
The upcoming Assassin's Creed.
Okay,
Prince of Persia: The Lost Crown.
Let me see what games.
Like Skull and Bones, Assassin's Creed.
Okay, Skull and Bones. I don't even think I've heard of.
Mirage,
Mirage,
Defiant,
X Defiant, terrible. The COD Killer, terrible. Terrible game. Movement felt weird. Hit registration was dog shit. Rank came out, it was unplayable. Snipers were bullshit. Game sucked.
Prince of Persia,
and it had no soul.
The Lost Crown, Star Wars Outlaws, and the upcoming Assassin's Creed Black Shadows. Nothing's
actually didn't know. Oh yeah, I did know they did the Star Wars stuff.
To be able to pull them out of this death spiral, no matter how many games they release in quick succession.
Yeah.
When a company releases 6 games over the course of a couple of years, that's usually the sign of success. But in the case of Ubisoft, each release seems to be taking them one step closer towards the brink of collapse.
Sure.
So how did this happen? Why did this happen? How does a cornerstone of the AAA industry fall this far from grace? Well, to answer that, we need to go back and look to where Ubisoft came from, where it peaked, and where it fell.
Yeah.
Ubisoft, like many developers, cut their teeth on PC games in the late 80s. A game company initially started by the 5 Guillemot brothers, who still own and operate the company today, initially focused on games distribution as they slowly moved into games development.
I actually didn't know that.
Titles like Zombie, Prince of Persia, and a few others helped them to gain a foothold, but it wasn't until 1995 that the company would make a name for itself.
Okay.
Rayman exploded onto the scene, a game using interactive and creative puzzle and platforming mechanics that we hadn't even seen before, that sold over 4.
Dude, I don't know if it was Rayman or Pikmin. Anytime I've seen someone buying that or playing that, I thought it was cringe. like this just I just thought it was a crappy franchise, and apparently it's what blew Ubisoft up. So I am uncultured.
100,000 units by the end of the year, becoming the most popular game in Europe and cementing itself in gaming history. Following their success came rapid expansion. By the year 2000, Ubisoft saw exponential growth on their publishing side with major victories on the Dreamcast, with titles like Grandia 2, my favorite JRPG of all time, Tokyo Extreme Racer, F1 Racing Championship, and Taxi 2. However, it was on the PlayStation 2.
So they went from Rayman to racing? And they did well?
That Ubisoft would find its identity. While they were still publishing great games like FromSoft's Armored Core 2 and Eternal Ring and Snowblind Studios' Champions of Norath, it was during this time that Ubisoft acquired the license to use Tom Clancy's stories and name in a series of games with Tom Clancy's
Dude, I remember
Recon.
Tom Clancy's Las Vegas? What was it, 6 maybe? Anyway, dude, it was on PSP. So good. I literally, I would leave almost every second weekend, every weekend, whatever, back when I was like 9, 10, 11, 12, stuff like that, and drive like 4 hours to family, right? So I'd be in the back seat, mom in the front seat, just driving, playing PSP, replaying Grand Theft Auto, Vice City Stories, or whatever it was on the PSP, replaying it so I could keep seeing the cutscene with the chick that's hot, and NBA 2K like 9, and Rainbow, like whatever it is, Tom Clancy's Rainbow Six, whatever, Las Vegas or whatever it was, bro. That was so good on the PSP, man. Absolutely legendary. The PSP was amazing.
And later, Splinter Cell taking the stage. After this, Ubisoft went on a blitz with original titles, quickly rolling out sequel after sequel. Splinter Cell kicked it off in 2003 with Pandora Tomorrow in 2004,
Splinter Cell,
Chaos
man.
Theory in 2005, Double Agent in 2006. Ghost Recon launched in 2002. It had a sequel in 2004, a next version of it with Advanced Warfighter in 2006, Advanced Warfighter 2 in 2007. Prince of Persia: The Sands of Time came out in 2003, and just
was this the one I played? I don't
like
remember.
The others, it saw rapid follow-ups with Warrior Within in 2004 and Two Thrones in 2005. Around the mid-2000s...
Maybe it was Two Thrones. Was it Two Thrones? Prince of Persia. No, it was Sands of Time, wasn't it? Games. I can tell you because I think it was this one. Or was it this one? Wait. Let's see. Yeah, it was this one. 2005. Battles of Prince of Persia. Came out on Wii, bro. Oh my god, it was good.
Ubisoft must have realized that this rapid pace was not sustainable.
Yeah.
And it started to affect the quality of their games. Later releases took longer. The next Prince of Persia game didn't appear until 2008. And it took 4 years to develop the next Far Cry game from the original that came out in 2004. Despite this intense schedule,
Ubisoft came out with Far Cry? No, they didn't. Let's see. Maybe they did. They did. Wow.
Own against rivals in Activision with its military shooters and competing against Konami's Metal Gear Solid through Splinter Cell. Regardless of their success in publishing, developing licensed IPs, and military shooters, it was the release of Assassin's Creed in 2007 that set Ubisoft into orbit, and it bridged a gap with a title that appealed to audiences worldwide. There was nothing like it in the market at the time. This game was an enigma. It was far and away the best-looking game on consoles. Its fluid movement, parkour, and combat felt alien.
Assassin's Creed, baby.
Reliving our ancestors' memories while we chase a relic to try to stop the shadow government Templars was fresh and original. Assassin's Creed defined modern gaming at the time, and it made Ubisoft a household name. Ubisoft was everywhere at this time. You'd be hard-pressed not to turn on your console or turn on your PC and see that logo pop up. And it wasn't just the games that they were making, it was the games that they were publishing. They had such a good eye for talent, such a good eye for great games. As a result, they made a ton of money. I mean, they published Morrowind. I didn't even know that. I was going through some of the history of all the different games that they had published over the
Wow.
years, and I was sitting back going like, man, these guys are raking in cash at the
I mean,
time.
they did well with
But
Morrowind.
it wasn't
then.
just those games as well. It was also the successes that they were seeing with the games that they were making.
Yeah.
They had such a fresh and high quality outlook on all the games that they were creating. They were really leaning into presentation more than anything else. They wanted to make sure that their games just looked the best, hands down, bar none, no competition.
Well, you're seeing this with a lot of the companies, right? Like, think of all the companies that made games in the early 2000s that have slowed down and their games just aren't good now. Not even slowed down, but just the games aren't as good. Like, think of Blizzard, bro. Like, Blizzard ran the 2000s. Ubisoft apparently ran the 2000s, like later to 2010. Like, the only people that are even even Nintendo, bro, they're not even coming out with anything that's crazy. They're just like re-releasing Pokemons and Super Smash and Mario. Like, it's not, there's no, I can't think of any developer that has successfully kept going other than like Rockstar. I mean, when Elder Scrolls 6 comes out, maybe we could say Bethesda, but Bethesda's had a few flops, bro. Starfield flopped, Fallout 76 flopped. They've had a couple flops. So I think maybe Rockstar is like one of the few that have started, late 90s, early 2000s, whatever, and progressed throughout with innovative and inventive stuff.
And they pulled it off. Advanced Warfighter 1 and 2 were some of my favorite shooters of all time, even kind of more than some of the Call of Duty games at the time. They're likely the games that ended up inspiring Call of Duty Modern Warfare 1 and 2. You look at Splinter Cell and Metal Gear Solid, they lean really hard into the stealth aspects, the spy aspects of those kind of games, and as a result, they found their own following and gave a really unique experience that you weren't getting from the Metal Gear Solid games. While the narrative,
which I think they're
going to
also say about the Dark Souls games in the future, because they're really becoming more mainstream. People are liking the accomplishment of killing a boss after 700 deaths. And I think Elden Ring brought that to the next level. And I do think that's going to be a big genre this decade.
Well, pretty good.
Like the 20s.
The gameplay was completely different. Then you bring out Assassin's Creed, and that just took their quality to a completely different level.
Sure.
At this point, with Ubisoft,
okay, we're 13 minutes
games,
in,
9 times out of 10, you were going to have
6 minutes into the video. We got to chill.
They were incredible experiences, and Ubisoft knew that. They capitalized on it, and they profited. Following the release of Assassin's Creed in 2007, Ubisoft entered into a golden era that solidified their place as one of the leaders in the AAA industry.
Yeah.
The success of Assassin's Creed was not just a one-off hit. It became a flagship franchise that grew in scope and ambition with each installment. Assassin's Creed 2 in 2009 expanded upon the original's foundations with deeper gameplay mechanics, a more engaging narrative, and a charismatic protagonist in Ezio Auditore. Still the best protagonist in all of Assassin's Creed. The game was a commercial and critical success, selling over 9 million copies and becoming one of the most celebrated entries in the entire series. The success continued with Assassin's Creed Brotherhood in 2010 and Assassin's Creed Revelations in 2011. In combination with this, Ubisoft was experiencing major successes with their Far Cry series. Far Cry 3 in 2012 was a groundbreaking title that redefined open-world gaming. It introduced vast, explorable islands filled with diverse environments and a gripping story and one of the most memorable protagonists in all of gaming history. And I think that character shows just how far Ubisoft today has fallen from where they came from. No shot Ubisoft ever makes a villain like this again.
I'm sorry, what did you say? What did you say? Do you want me to slice you open like I did your friend? Shut the fuck up! Okay? I'm the one with the fucking dick. Look at me. Look me in the fucking eye. Hey! You fuck! Look me in the eye! You're my bitch. I rule this fucking kingdom.
Oh my god.
Far Cry 3 sold over 10 million copies and was lauded as one of the best games of the generation, setting a new benchmark for open world shooters. The series continued to thrive with Far Cry 4 in 2014 and Far Cry 5 in 2018, each expanding on the franchise's formula with
Far Cry 6 now, right?
Narratives By 2018, Far Cry 5 became the fastest selling title in Ubisoft's history, moving over 5 million copies within the first week, solidifying the franchise's place in history. In parallel with the success that they had going on with the Far Cry
Rainbow
series,
Six Siege,
Tom
baby.
Clancy's Rainbow Six Siege initially launched to a modest reception, but through consistent updates and community engagement, it has now grown into one of the most popular and enduring multiplayer shooters, even still today.
And I've played this game, and I'll tell you the reason that it stayed consistent and grew over time. One, obviously they cared about it and they updated it and they did well. Sure, fine. The learning curve on a game like this can be make or break, but there wasn't an insane learning curve at the beginning, right? So there wasn't an insane learning curve at the beginning, so it hooked people and got people interested and made content creators and people like that, right? And then over time, people got their friends to play and their, whatever. Everybody started playing at a little bit of a learning curve. So when you have a game with a little bit of a learning curve and you get past that learning curve, it's invested knowledge. So now you feel like you have to play it or at least come back to it. So like, for example, League of Legends, people that have never played League just don't play League. But people that have played League, like myself, my best friend, we go back to it and sometimes they're just playing it for months on end. And it's because you have that invested knowledge where I invested so much time to actually learn this game. And because I invested this time, I feel bad for not playing it, right? So over time, that's what happened with this game. And now they have a really good competitive scene and obviously heavily elevated by Jinxie. I get that. But the game it's like League, where it has a high learning curve. There are a lot of operators. There are a lot of things to learn, but it is satisfying to learn. The gunplay is satisfying, and the ranking system's decent. So they did a really good job with this, and that's why I'm surprised this video exists, because I didn't know Ubisoft was in such a bad spot. I knew they had a couple shit games, but like so is Bethesda, and Bethesda doesn't have. They've sold Skyrim 7 different times, but like they don't have Rainbow Six Siege, stuff like that, right? So I'm super surprised about this video. I don't even know if I agree fully yet that it's like a dying company, but we'll have to see.
By 2018, Rainbow Six Siege had amassed over 30 million players.
Yeah, it just
Tom
grew
Clancy's
because
Division
of the
in
difficulty.
2016 was another major hit.
And wanting to be a
compelling
part of the
blend
community.
Third-person shooting and RPG mechanics set in a post-apocalyptic New York.
Yeah.
It was Ubisoft's fastest-selling new IP at launch, earning $330 million in sales within the first week. It showcased
I tried to
Ubisoft's
play The
ability to
Division.
successfully
I'm trying
launch
not to pause a
new
lot,
IP.
by the way. That's working well. I tried to play The Division, man. Didn't really like it. You almost got to get the max level to enjoy the game, especially The Division 2. And I didn't want to do that.
While still being able to maintain their existing franchises. If we take a snapshot of the successes from 2000 to 2018, we see a Ubisoft that was consistently delivering on high-quality experiences while innovating within existing franchises, creating new franchises, doing all kinds of things.
Yeah.
But at the exact same time, we also see a foreboding trend. The minute that they see a game become successful, they hammer that nail again and again and again. Sometimes within such quick succession that we're seeing sequels with games within years.
But I wouldn't care about that if they were hammering Assassin's Creed for 10 plus years, if they were coming out with a new IP every few years, right? Like they came out with some new Far Cry stuff, Assassin's Creed, The Division, Rainbow Six Siege. Like these are big hitters, right? And if they consistently kept doing that, it wouldn't have been an issue.
Year to year, back to back to back to back. And then they stop. And that's going to take a toll, not only on the developers, but also on the audiences.
Sure.
But by 2018, Ubisoft was worth $24 a share. It was the highest price. It's still the highest price that they've ever been worth. And in that's the perfect reflection, whether you care about share prices or not. It's the perfect reflection of what the company was worth at the time. 10 times the value that they were before they released Assassin's Creed. They were swimming in cash.
Yeah.
They were so successful. They were massive. But when you reach those peaks, there tends to be a trend that follows. And they've been following that trend straight into the ground. As Ubisoft entered into 2018, the cracks in its previously successful formula began to show. While the company had relied on its major franchises to drive growth and maintain its position within the industry,
What's
the
that
strategy began to
2021
falter.
right here?
The initial decline.
Is this Far Cry 6? Yeah, that would be around October. Yeah, no. What came out to make that big? And well, it has to be Far Cry, right?
In its position
Anyway.
within the industry, the strategy began to falter. The initial decline of this period can largely be attributed to Ubisoft's over-reliance on its established franchises, a pattern that we've seen with many major publishers.
Yeah.
The once groundbreaking mechanics and narratives that defined Ubisoft's titles were beginning to feel repetitive, leading to players feeling bored and fatigued with Ubisoft's design.
Yeah.
I'll be honest, by the third Assassin's Creed, I had already tapped out because I felt like I saw the writing on the wall. Every time
I mean,
watched
Black
any
Flag's the last one I played. What's the last one you guys played? Let me know.
reveals or trailers, I said, yeah, I've done all this before. This over-reliance on existing franchises resulted in a slew of releases that, while still commercially viable, lacked the innovative spark that once defined the company. Assassin's Creed Odyssey in 2018 was a prime example of this issue. Despite it being a commercial success and receiving positive reviews, it didn't quite reach the heights of previous entries in the series. While it expanded upon RPG elements that were introduced in Assassin's Creed Origins, players and critics alike felt that the formula was becoming stale, with the vast majority of the open world and numerous side activities feeling.
I think it was a weird scenario too, because you had Assassin's Creed Origins that was marketed similarly to Assassin's Creed Odyssey. It didn't feel like it had an insanely different identity. Assassin's Creed Odyssey. Assassin's Creed Origins. What I mean, like, you got like, I just feel like it looked similar. You know what I mean? Like, do you feel like someone that's like stumbles into EB Games could see this and be like, you know what I mean? Like Odyssey Origins, same color for like the outfits, gold and red. It looks similar in the gameplay. Like, it just seemed like it was a carbon copy, or like you could get mixed up with it being a new game or not. I might be tweaking for that, but I just didn't even really like fully understand that Odyssey and Origins were different. I'm really dumb. I'm really fucking dumb. So it might be because of that, but
more like a checklist rather than an engaging experience. This propagated a shared perception between players and critics of more of the same. Ubisoft games were becoming predictable, drawn out, and boring. Far Cry New Dawn in 2019 suffered from the exact same issues. As a direct sequel to Far Cry 5, it
no,
attempted to
New
build
Dawn
on-
was the same thing, bro. Far Cry New Dawn. That shit was that weird spin-off thing that people were like, is it a DLC or not? You know what I mean? Like, it was just a sequel, it was a spin-off. I get that. I understand. And, you know, it had its own little pink branding. Sure. But people just thought that was a DLC, bro. I was literally working at EB Games at the time. And people would ask me, like, is this a DLC to Far Cry 5? And I'm like, it's a sequel, technically. And then the price point was high enough to where it couldn't justify a DLC price. Like, watch. I think it was $49. Well, that was before it came out. Yeah, it was $49. I'm pretty sure it was $49 when it came out. It might have even been, yeah, it was $49. It was $49. So, like, you're doing a $49. It's either a super important remaster, or it's a brand new game sequel that's not AAA. That's so confusing to the consumer.
the narrative and setting, but was seen as more of an expansion than a full-fledged new installment.
Yeah.
The game was a commercial success to a degree, but it didn't match the sales or the impact of Far Cry 3 or Far Cry 4. The narrative was
how would it?
weaker, the post-apocalyptic setting, while a new direction for the series didn't
People
really
literally
resonate
thought it was a
strongly with the
DLC,
player
bro.
base. This underwhelming reception was indicative of a larger issue. The lack of
Like,
fresh
if they
ideas.
just didn't come out with this game, Far Cry 6 would have been so much bigger. even though it was really good. But the thing is, like, they for some reason wanted to milk that shit, came out with a New Dawn thing, confused everybody. It was mid, and then they were like, oh, well, I guess Ubisoft's mid now. Like, it just would have been smarter not to do that. Like, when did Far Cry 6 come out? I'm pretty sure Far Cry 6, we just looked it up, right? Yeah, 2021, right? Yeah. So when did New Dawn come out? Far Cry New Dawn release date. Came out in February 2019. And when did Far Cry release date? 2018. You didn't need to do that. There was 3 years between 5 and 6. You didn't need to come out with New Dawn. New Dawn, in my opinion, was just a way to have female antagonists or players to try to incorporate the inclusivity community in 2019, right? Because that shit's going out the window lately. Like, people are trying to be less political, stuff like that, because it's annoying the fuck out of everybody. Which, you know, whatever, you can have your own opinion. I think I just want to run around and shoot a gun. I don't really care. But what I'm saying is that it wasn't necessary, bro. It wasn't. It ruined it, and it really fucked them. It made them look mid because people didn't even know what the game was, bro. All right, we're fucking 30 minutes into this react. It was 12 minutes.
Another notable release during this period was The Division 2 in 2019. Now, this game was well received. It had refined mechanics over the first game. The end game content was really engaging, and it was twice the size, if not larger, than the first game. However, despite its reception, it didn't meet Ubisoft's high sales expectations. The live service model that they had injected into the game arbitrarily, while successful in Rainbow Six Siege, did not effectively translate into The Division 2.
I can tell you exactly why. It's the same. I keep saying it, bro. And Ubisoft is actually dumb. Like, who do we have working at... Oh, my God. Who do we have? What suits? Oh, my God. Where are they? I just need to call... Hello? Hi. Yeah. Listen, stop fucking doing this. Listen to me right now. WoW literally... Oh, my God. I actually can't. Listen. WoW is trying to make PvP a thing, right? So you're trying to make PvP a thing. Okay. Fair. It's not going to be mainstream. There's no way for it to be mainstream. You know why? Oh my God. The barrier of entry. The barrier of entry. New players can't PvP. They can't. They can't PvP. It's the same thing with this. I could be tweaking, but I'm 99.9% sure, and I'm not going to fact check myself, because if I'm wrong, you'll tell me in the comments and it'll fuel the algorithm. You need to be a higher level. Like I said earlier, you need to try to get the max level for the game to even matter, bro. That's fucking dumb. That's fine for the people that play it, but you better hope you have 2 million players like Power World to get people interested in it in the first place. And if you don't, which they didn't, because they dropped New Dawn the same year and people were tweaking about a DLC, and which it wasn't. You like, if you're gonna do a live, you can't have a live service game on an IP that isn't absolutely massive, that has a barrier of entry. You can't. Oh my God. You can't. You can't. It actually blows my mind that it exists.
This is partly due to market saturation, as other players are more invested in other live service games. But from my perspective as a fan from Division 2, the live service model just didn't work here. It felt generic. In a game where you're finding loot, and that's the gameplay loop, the last thing that you want to do is buy things to wear. You want to stand out for your achievements.
And you're like...
in the game, not how much you
microtransactions, because the barrier entry was dog shit.
Poorly implemented monetization and loss of connection with the players is a common issue for companies that heavily rely on their existing franchises. While sequels and spin-offs can capitalize on established fan bases, they also run the risk of alienating players by offering experiences that feel all too familiar, or injecting things into those experiences that make them, well, just something the players don't want to engage with whatsoever. Ubisoft's reliance on its core...
I'm sick of gaming companies making a game to where they tell you how to be happy. Like, why can't they make a good game and let us enjoy what it is and make ourselves happy with the game?
Franchises like Assassin's Creed, Far Cry, and the Tom Clancy games led to a perception that the company was simply reusing the same templates with minor tweaks and adding monetization. This lack of innovation and growing similarities between their titles resulted in players being less excited about their new games, and they began to see Ubisoft games as formulaic in design. With sprawling open worlds filled with repetitive tasks rather than unique and engaging experiences. And I think that's the most troubling thing when it comes to Ubisoft. It's their aversion to criticism. Get that away from me. And they're not alone in that, okay? There's plenty of other studios and journalists that are out there that feel the same way. Don't listen to the gamers, those angry gamers. They don't know anything. And look, I get it. While 9 times out of 10, players don't know how to voice their criticisms effectively, oftentimes they're just being mean when they say things. They're still telling you that something's wrong with your games and you need to fix it. But year after year, Ubisoft has completely failed to listen to any criticism, whether that's coming from professional critics or the players. People have been saying for years how formulaic their design is, how scary predictable their games are. I know that if I log into an open world Ubisoft game, it's just going to be a checklist simulator. Everybody still remembers when their developers took to Twitter to criticize Elden Ring of all games for its open world design, its quest design, and its UI. How the fuck do you do that? That's the best game that we've had. One of the
UI. The UI. What?
You're telling me that Elden Ring has a worse UI than this? That's what you're telling me? Elden Ring has a worse UI than this? Oh my god.
I actually can't. I can't. My mind is actually blown. If someone can scientifically prove to me that this UI is better than Elden Ring, I'll get a hair transplant. Dude, actually blown away.
The best games that we've had in the last decade. Why wouldn't you look at a game like that, look at the success that it sees, and say, we need to internalize some of the things that this game did well, why players liked it, and then reflect that in our games going forward? That's how you make better products. You learn from your competition, learn from the games that do well, instead of looking at it, wanting to criticize it, and trying to make excuses why you think that your games are better.
Because they're salty.
Assassin's Creed instead. Fuck that.
They're salty.
Look, Ubisoft had a bit of a resurgence in 2018 to 2019, and it looked like they were getting back on the horse. It looked like they were listening to player feedback. They were implementing in their games. It was making better games as a result. They were making a lot of money, but that only lasted for so long. After a period of declining interest and fatigue, Ubisoft managed to stage a bit of a resurgence in 2019 and 2020 by revisiting some of their core franchises with a renewed focus and experimenting with some fresh ideas. Now, who thought something like that could actually have a positive impact on your sales? One of the most significant releases during this time was Assassin's Creed Valhalla in 2020.
That's why I told you this game. People are saying that this when did it came out in like March, right? Oh, November. Never mind. So people were still kind of popping in the gaming stuff at that point from like COVID. So I think people liked this game. I think it was moderately liked. That's what I noticed.
This game was a commercial hit, selling more copies during its launch week than any other previous Assassin's Creed title. It received praise for its engaging narrative, improved combat mechanics, and rich historical setting. Valhalla revitalized interest in the series. It showed that Ubisoft could make changes. However, that isn't to say that players' complaints didn't remain the same. Many reviewers and players lamented over the length of the game, and while Valhalla introduced some innovative elements, territory arcs as well as the narrative just dragged on for far too long. The game's average completion time was over 60 hours, and 100% completion was nearing over 200 hours. No matter what you do, elements that were praised at the beginning of the game are going to start to feel repetitive, and it's just, yet again, going to feel like a checklist of tasks.
Sure.
In the same year, they released Watchdog Legions, which attempted to innovate with its
Oh,
play as anyone
yeah.
mechanic, allowing the player to recruit and control virtually any character in the entire game world.
Watchdog.
While the game received mixed reception due to some technical issues and a less than compelling story than we've seen from its predecessors, it sold relatively well. And it showed that the company was willing to take some risks and explore some new concepts with existing franchises. Immortals Phoenix Rising in 2020 was another one of those key releases that showed Ubisoft had a willingness to experiment and even come out with some new IPs.
I didn't know
The game
this.
offered a vibrant and humorous take on Greek
Cool.
mythology combined with open world exploration and puzzle solving and action combat. There were a lot of folks that liked this game, and in some cases, people liked it even more than Breath of the Wild at the time. Though it didn't reach the commercial heights of Assassin's Creed or Far Cry, it showed that Ubisoft could still deliver a fresh and enjoyable experience outside of their established franchises.
Yeah.
However, I think the most important thing to keep in mind during this period of time and this surge of growth at Ubisoft, and
They
the
weren't
biggest
even
boom
doing their
to Ubisoft
IPs
at the
right.
time, as well as many other developers as well, is that there was a pandemic and lockdown that was driving an increase in game sales and player
That's exactly
engagement.
what I said.
With people spending more time at home, the demand for games surged. Ubisoft benefited from this greatly as their established franchises and live service games offered an extensive amount of content for players to explore. Rainbow Six Siege saw massive growth during this period, with the player base growing to over 70 million players by the end of 2021. Continued support through regular updates, new operators, and seasonal events helped keep that community engaged and invested even today.
Yeah.
Any game studio that had a game that came out or was ready to release right around the time of lockdowns saw massive growth and massive profits. Go figure. But as we've learned, that growth is inorganic and unsustainable, and none of them had been able to maintain it.
It's kind of like all the streamers and all the YouTubers that blew up in the pandemic that are just not around anymore.
With that said, yeah, of course, Ubisoft was going to see a little bit of growth there, and they definitely evolved a little bit past some of their game design issues, but the vast majority of those issues still remained. Those same criticisms were still there, regardless of the years that had gone by.
Yeah.
And one of the other problems that Ubisoft has is the minute that they see something work, they will hammer it until the wheels fall off. They will exhaust you as fast as they possibly can because they just want to try to make as much money as fast as they possibly can, rather than paying attention to what the longevity of that game would look like, how much more money you could make if the game lived longer. But they just...
The thing is with these companies, though, the issue is, do you have an if the game lasts long, if you do this, or milk it right now as it exists? You know what I mean? So like we can milk it right now, or we can properly do this and the game still dies in 4 years. Like when you're looking at graphs and numbers, I don't think probability is a factor. I think safety factor and security is what they look at. And security is milking it for what it is right now.
love killing games. When you have an entire industry that is criticizing your games, where in a lot of cases you can take some of these reviews for some of their games, layer them on top of each other, and it looks like they're reviewing the exact same game. When you have your players that are complaining about your monetization practices and your prices, you don't then go and just make all those things worse.
Yeah.
You just keep doing the exact same thing. You don't inject. How do you put XP boost in a single player game? What are you doing? Why? What is this? It completely defeats the purpose of playing games like this in the first place. We know that all you're doing is just expanding the content as far as you possibly can to make it unrealistic for casual players to play without spending money.
Yeah.
It's transparent. That's the worst part about them. They are transparent greed manifest. You can see everything they do and they think that they're being sneaky about it. What are you talking about? Get comfortable with not buying your games. Yeah, I know what you mean by that. I know the implications of what you're talking about. Because that means that you're going to try to make it where we can't buy games. That'll make us a little bit more comfortable with it in the future, right?
That's what Xbox is. So Xbox Game Pass is exactly that. People were making fun of it back in like 2015. When did Xbox Game Pass come out? I think it was like 2013. Oh, 2017. What? Okay, well, I was wrong. People were making fun of it definitely back then, right? They were like, we're not going to pay subscription monthly to play video games. Now people are realizing that the value is insane. So not buying a $90 game and just paying monthly, we might be going back to what it used to be. When we used to have 600 games on the market and you didn't want to spend $65 on every single game, so you just go rent it for $5. You pay for a month subscription, play your game. You didn't get anything of value, but you got to play the game and they got their money. It's interesting.
Well, don't worry about it. We're all pretty comfortable with not buying your games. Which brings us to the rapid decline of Ubisoft over the past few years, with release after release failing to...
This is what I'm interested about. I know Ubisoft's been a bit trash for the last few, for 2018 to 2022. Like, they had their times, whatever. I'm interested to see why they've been dying in the last 2 years. Because I don't know. I haven't kept up with
doing nothing to compete with recent shifts in the market. To me, Tom Clancy's Ghost Recon Breakpoint in 2019 encapsulates everything that's wrong with modern Ubisoft. It was buggy, the writing was awful, it was repetitive and generic, over-bloated and over-monetized. They monetized XP gains. They put vehicles and skins that had no business being in the game into the game and destroyed any sense of immersion in a largely single-player experience. Like every other open-world game from Ubisoft, even still today, they haphazardly put in RPG mechanics like varied loot, skill trees, and more.
Yeah.
Mechanics that are only there to extend the player's time in the game. Putting these elements in there as a means to gatekeep players from progressing the story or taking on certain enemies. I think SkillUp said it best when he was reviewing Breakpoint, saying, why the fuck is this in the game? Why is it so poorly implemented? And why is it in every...
Wait, so you could buy...
Why the fuck is this in the game? Why?
So you could buy experience boosts in a single player game. That just hit me. Like, I get it, but that's insane. Like you purchased this game and now you need to buy experience boosts. And even if the experience boost isn't to like negate how long it takes to get two things, you're going to want to just do it because I can't do this on regular XP. There's no point. Why don't I go double XP or 50% XP to get that extra boost? That's so scummy,
why is it
dude.
so poorly implemented, and why is it in every game in their portfolio? This sort of design philosophy has proliferated through just about every single game that they make, and what makes matters worse for Ubisoft, and I think this is the one thing that the vast majority of people are overlooking here, it's what's killing their sales, it's the increase in competition from other publishers with new successful IPs. Games like Elden...
in which you buy and you get the entire game. You purchase it, you enjoy it, it's done. I agree.
Ring and Genshin Impact have captured player interest. Elden Ring's...
I get that Genshin Impact has definitely captured player interest. Bad example when you're talking about microtransactions.
Open world design and exploration set a new benchmark for the genre, while Genshin Impact offers a free-to-play model in an open world game with high production values.
Don't tell me you think this is actually free to play. I really hope you follow this up with, but you don't have a choice but to buy the microtransactions because you can't play this game for free. You can, but you better be a full-time creator.
And it's shaking up players' expectations. Games like these force players
shaking
to
up
compare
your wallet.
similarities, and when you contrast Ubisoft games with the experiences that players have had access to over the past few years, it's no wonder why people aren't playing their games. And this goes back to what we were discussing previously. Ubisoft's core issue is their inability to change.
Listen, Ubisoft, I get that the market is a bit flooded by good stuff right now, but the reason people aren't playing Ubisoft games is because Ubisoft games are not good. they're not good. If the game was good, people would play it. If the game was good, people would play it. And obviously, the game isn't good because people aren't playing it. If the game was good, they would sell more copies and not need the microtransactions, but they need the microtransactions because they can't sell the game, because the game isn't good. If you have journalists in your back pocket, big journalist companies, saying that it's an 8 out of 10, and it comes out and it's a 2 out of 10, the game isn't good. You paid for someone to think it's good.
And recognize trends. Their loss in quality and generic monetization. Look at their first quadruple A game ever made, Skull and Bones, a $70 live.
Oh, Skull and Bones is Sea of Thieves. Got it. So you already have Sea of Thieves that captured the entire audience. You better do a Riot where it's you take CS, you rebrand it, put a lot of soul into it, and add skills to make it interesting. It better not be a carbon copy of Sea of Thieves, or people aren't going to play it. Why would they play Ubisoft for Sea of Thieves?
Service title in development for 11 years, costing over $200 million, only to release a more boring version of Assassin's Creed Black Flag with less than 700 concurrent players on Steam. They set out to make a...
It's not even Sea of Thieves. It's not even Sea of Thieves. They just tried to make a shit Black Flag. I told you at the beginning of the video I didn't know what this game was.
Black Flag.
I now know why I didn't know what this game was. There wasn't enough marketing, iBlue. There wasn't enough marketing. They didn't tell people. They didn't do Facebook ads, man. They didn't do a Skull and Bones con, man. There was no marketing for Deadlock. And Deadlock is big. You know why? It's a good game. It's a good game. If the game is good, people are going to play the game. If the game isn't good, people aren't going to play the game. And guess what? If the game is good, word of mouth is better than any marketing. Any. If the game is good, people will play the game. And they'll tell their friends about the game, and they'll play the game, and then everybody will be playing the game, and the game will be played, and people will have money. The game's not being played. 400. How many now? How many now? Steam charts. Let's see. Let's see. Deadlock. Okay, can't find it. That's okay though. Don't worry about that. That's fine. I think I thought it was on Steam, but anyway. Skull and Bones. 300 players. The game's not good. If the game was good, it would have 600, and then it would have 1,200, and then it would have 2,400. And you know what that means? It's exponentially multiplying by 2 because you're telling your friends. That's what that means. And guess what? There will be content around it, and people will want to watch it, and people will want to play it. Oh, do people want to watch it? Let's see. Let's see. How many people are watching Skull and Bones? Oh. Oh, 98. The game must be really good. How about YouTube? Skull and Bones. Why Skull and Bones failed? Quadruple A game. Video Game Donkey. Ubisoft attempt to save Skull and Bones. Why Skull and Bones is boned? Skull and Bones is bad. Before you buy Skull and Bones, I platinumed it. Okay, Skull and Bones update has been released. And guess what? Nobody gives a fuck. The game sucks. The game is dog shit. Nobody's gonna play a goddamn dog shit game. That's just it. That's just it, chat.
700 concurrent players.
I'm sweating, bro. I'm
set
sweating.
Out to make a more consumable version of Assassin's Creed with
I'm
Mirage,
sweating.
charging $50 for a less than 15-hour game that did nothing to evolve the franchise. They finally returned to Prince of Persia with the Lost Crown. They made an awesome game. It was really innovative. I actually enjoyed it, but they charged $40 for a Metroidvania game in a market where those games cost a fourth of the price. Star Wars Outlaws, a game for all.
My 2 points there is that everybody asked for a shorter game because they were all 60 hours and they were like, that's too long. They make a shorter game, people complain. Now, it wasn't innovative, so it's kind of annoying. $40 for a Metroidvania type, but based on an IP of Prince of Persia, not that bad. Indie developer, $15, $20, but come on. It's Prince of Persia. You got to slap a price tag on it. That would be my argument with that.
All intents and purposes should have been an easy home run, but ultimately showcases how dire the situation is at Ubisoft.
Yeah.
Not only does the game suffer from quality issues, unattractive character designs, bugs, repetitiveness, and inconsistencies, but in an attempt to remove some of their open world bloat, you come to realize just how those elements, once they're removed, the game is really just held together by duct tape. Eurogamer in their review said something really interesting, saying that the problem with Star Wars Outlaws, however, isn't that it adheres too closely to the development approach akin to hoarding, but that it does the opposite, stripping away years of accumulated video game clutter. Admirably, Outlaws does this quite aggressively, Kessel Sabak aside. But in doing so, it reveals an integral issue. Ubisoft open world games are not only fun because of their formula, they are their formula. To strip away isn't to peel off some old wallpaper to reveal the original brickwork, it's lifting up the carpet to find a whacking great hole in the ground. Meaning that their games
I just
are
spaced
hollow,
out and didn't
I
care
think
about
that
any
that's
of
a
that,
fitting
sorry.
description. From my perspective as a player, Ubisoft has become synonymous with generic games that are overpriced, overmonetized, and overly repetitive.
I would agree with
Outside
that.
of the Division 1 and 2, I've had no interest whatsoever in playing any of their games because I've already played them years ago, and playing the next game isn't going to be any different.
Yeah.
It's the same games pushed out the door for profit that lack any creativity or originality. Now we look at their next release, Assassin's Creed Shadows, a game criticized well before its release because, other than
And everybody knows, and I'm probably going to brand myself around it because it makes the most sense. I love Assassins. I love Assassins. I love Rogues. I love Shadowers. I love Ninjas. I love it. It's literally my favorite like genre or like I don't even know. Like, what would you call that? It's not a genre. It's like a theme almost. I love it. I love it. And I'm actually excited for this game. And they fucked me because I was going to play this.
legacy media, everyone else can see the elephant in the room. An Assassin's Creed game finally set in Japan, a setting that is so great for a game with this kind of theme, only to include a tokenized representation of a character with vague at best historical relevance backed by a hip-hop soundtrack in combat. Why is it that representation to these people means hip-hop soundtracks or a character wearing Jordans whose power is that they run fast? I'll be honest, I think that a lot of the dialogue surrounding Assassin's Creed Shadows are issues that players would largely ignore if they knew that Assassin's Creed, that this game, was going to be incredible. But over the years, players have come to expect less and less from Ubisoft games. Why are investors so concerned? Why are they jumping ship before one of the largest releases of Ubisoft in recent memory? Well, why don't you tell me why anyone would want to play Assassin's Creed Shadows when they have far better Eastern-themed alternatives that without a doubt have better combat, better environments, higher quality, and better storytelling, without the need to be able to make a statement or press their morals against an audience? Why would I play Assassin's Creed Shadows when I could play Black Myth Wukong, Ghost of Tsushima, or Rise of Ronin?
Yeah.
Why would I play something
Sekiro
that I have already played when I could play something entirely fresh? Ubisoft's issues are the same issues that plague the vast majority of the largest publishers and developers in the industry, and it's that over the years, while they've continued to grow and chase profits, they've lost a unified vision of what their game should represent. In the pursuit for profits and expanding their market share and maximizing revenue through aggressive monetization strategies, they've strayed from the creative foundations that once made them an industry leader.
Yeah.
This fragmented approach has led to a loss of identity, resulting in games that feel more like products that are churned out to meet quarterly targets rather than passionate, well-crafted experiences.
Yep.
Look at the speed of Ubisoft's game releases. They struck the iron while the iron was hot, barely spacing any of their game releases, rarely making new IPs, or changing their perspective on how to deliver existing franchises. This lack of cohesive vision and the inability to change has not only diluted the quality and the uniqueness of their franchises, but also eroded the trust and enthusiasm of the player bases.
Yep.
They're exhausted. Without a clear sense of purpose and a commitment to innovation and quality, Ubisoft, like many others in the industry, has found itself trapped in a cycle.
And you know what's funny? Ubisoft knows that. Guess what they don't care about? That. Because you know what that doesn't give them? Money.
Of diminishing returns and waning relevance. And I'll be honest, it's not going to stop.
Nope.
From my perspective, this is
why would
likely
it stop?
the end
They're
of
making
Ubisoft.
money.
The ship is too big to be able to turn on a dime, and the kind of overhaul that they need is likely a decade away. We can't save Ubisoft, and honestly, we don't want to. Let this be a stark warning to the rest of the industry, a cautionary tale. When you churn out games that nobody wants to buy, when you nickel and dime your
Shadows, Black Shadows, or whatever the hell it's called, needs to come out and be incredible. They need to drop a Division 3, and it actually be like a really good looter extraction type game or something that's a live service that really does it justice. And they need to come out with one new IP that wows everybody. And then maybe people will be like, oh, I might buy their next game, Far Cry 7.
Your players at every turn. When you strip your games of their soul, you don't just lose a sale. You lose your place in the industry. Play stupid games, win stupid prizes, and Ubisoft has played them all. I tried to do my best to be able to showcase the highs and lows of the company and all the games that they made, but I found the more that I researched, the more that I wrote, I just kept talking about the same games over and over again for damn near 20 years. Assassin's Creed, Rainbow Six, Far Cry. Assassin's Creed, Rainbow Six, Far Cry. Assassin's Creed, Rainbow Six, Far Cry. Well, you want to make sure that you're doing what you can to support the titles that players love the most, the reason why they know your name to begin with. At the same time, when you're absurdly aggressive like Ubisoft, where you just keep pumping out the same titles over and over again, and at the exact same time, you just continue to crank up the monetization and the pricing and how many things are locked behind different versions of your game for $100, $130.
Yeah.
Good Lord, what do you expect? What do you think is going to happen when you keep making the same thing over and over again, regardless of how many times people criticize your design, and you just keep increasing the prices, and there's better and more interesting and more unique experiences that are out there that we've been seeing over the last few years. So many of these independent AA, single A, and indie studios just popping off, selling more copies of games than you do now. You don't see a problem with that? You know, I was sitting back and I was watching people play Star Wars Outlaws. And I sat there thinking to myself, this is literally just Star Wars Assassin's Creed minus a few mechanics. It looks so boring.
Yeah.
Some of the aspects were cool.
I can imagine.
Part of the narrative was somewhat interesting. I liked a few of the environments, but outside of that, the actual mechanical gameplay just looks so boring. God, it looks so bad. It just goes.
Yeah, it really does. It's not good. I liked some of the Ubisoft games, but they've really done themselves in with this. Turns out if you keep disappointing your consumers, they stop consuming your products. What a wild concept. Well, that's a thing. Like, I feel like Ubisoft knew that, and they just want to milk that shit. Like, I don't know. Ubisoft filing in a coffin was the crew. I don't know about that. Together with Ubisoft, EA needs to fall too. I don't know. I think EA got its spot. I think EA has some pretty good IPs. I think moreover, the sports games are important. Believe it or not, if you hate the sports games because of the monetization, I understand. But it has its place and it deserves its place. People are buying it every year. And they're not being conned into buying it. They're buying it every year because they have a vested interest or invested interest into this. So it's kind of on the players. I'll never forgive Ubisoft for quietly killing Splinter Cell because no one wants to play it, only to release a game that actually nobody wants to play, like Skull and Bones. I don't know what happened to Splinter Cell. I would have loved to see more Splinter Cell games. I just don't know why they didn't continue. I mean, Splinter Cell was great. I remember playing Splinter Cell on the original Xbox with my uncle, and it was a great time. What a great time! What a great day. We'd wake up, we'd have a Cinnabon. We'd microwave it, have a Cinnabon, have some milk, and just hit some Splinter Cell. Those were good times. Did I ever tell you? Did I ever tell you what the definition of insanity is? Insanity is doing the same thing over and over and but no, that's I get that. But like they're not doing the same thing over and over and over, expecting things to change. That's the issue. Ubisoft is not expecting anything to change. They know this. They don't care. They don't want things to change. They're milking this shit because you're buying it. Everybody's buying it. I haven't played or bought a Far Cry game. I haven't played or bought I don't want to cap, so I'm gonna stop there. Listen, people are buying this shit. If they weren't buying this shit, then they would care. But they're making money. The best part of the investor open letter was them calling out Ubisoft for releasing multiple average games per year. You didn't read this, but if this is true, that's amazing. Anyway, the way you get yourself to this point is caring about profit, not caring about anything else. That's understandable. It's a company. That's it. But people need to just stop playing the games. That's it. You're destroying franchises that people love. You're just going to have to accept that people aren't going to play your franchise anymore. I think people gotta stop caring about multi-billion-dollar companies that don't care about you and start caring about the indie developers that are truly in it to make and further gaming as a whole. Anyway, I don't really care about Ubisoft, but I wanted to talk about it because I played a few of their games, and I don't know what to say. So goodbye. Yep. Comment, like, subscribe. I don't care if you do any of it. Actually, just I don't if you made it this far, you already did enough by fueling the algorithm. Thanks. All right. Fuck you, Ubisoft. Thanks, Ubisoft, for ruining everybody's lives. All right. Goodbye, Ubisoft. All right. See you, Ubisoft. Bye-bye.